Welcome to the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center. I see some familiar faces here. I see some familiar faces up there, which is great. And so I'm glad to have you here. My name is Randy Wedin. I'm one of the lay teachers here at Zen Center. And I've been a member here for about 15 years. And so tonight I'm going to talk about one of the foundational concepts in Buddhism, which is compassion. And I realized in the last couple of years, even though I've been coming here for 15 years and reading about Buddhism, that I didn't fully understand compassion from a Buddhist standpoint. So I've been learning more about it. And so I'm going to share some of my ideas with you, some of what I've been learning. And my talk is entitled 3 Perspectives on Compassion. So I'm hoping you can come away with 1 or 2 new ideas, maybe. So there's three parts to this talk. And maybe I should share my screen a little bit better. Well, I think it'll work out okay. So let me just tell you what the first part of the talk is going to be about the Buddhist concepts of compassion, kind of an overview. Second part is going to be about one of the important problem we have going on right now in America and how compassion might play a role in addressing that problem. And the third part is going to be, I'm going to introduce a metaphor for compassion. And I warn you right now, it's kind of an unusual one. So first, let's start with the overview of what Buddhist perspective on compassion is. So in early Buddhism, compassion is known as one of the 4 Brahma Viharas, which is Brahma Viharas are kind of like 4 key virtues, 4 key Buddhist virtues. They're also called the immeasurables or divine abodes. And the four Brahma Viharas are compassion, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And I'm just going to talk tonight a little bit about the 2 of them, and that's loving kindness and compassion, because they're pretty similar and they're often cultivated together. So let's just talk first about loving kindness, which you hear quite a bit about. The word in Sanskrit is metta, and it's loving kindness is the wish for all beings to be happy and to enjoy well-being. Now, compassion, which is Sanskrit is karuna, is, on the other hand, is concerned with alleviating suffering. So there's kind of a bit of a difference here, a subtle difference between promoting happiness, that's loving kindness, or alleviating suffering, that's compassion. Now, in the English language, if you take out a thesaurus and look up the word compassion, you're going to find a number of different words that are offered as synonyms for compassion. And this is kind of where I came in early on, was, when I entered Buddhism, thinking about, well, what is compassion? These are some of the words that are synonyms offered for compassion in our thesaurus: sympathy, kindness, empathy, pity, feeling, mercy. So that's kind of where I was at when I first started thinking about compassion. So I'm just going to look at 2 of those words in a little more detail, because they're useful to think about. And I'm going to look at the word pity and empathy and show you how they're not quite the same as compassion. And now in the Buddhist literature, pity is described as the near enemy of compassion. So a near enemy is a state of mind or quality that appears similar to a more noble or desired state, but it's fundamentally different in a harmful way. So pity sets up kind of a separation to between ourselves and others. So pity says, oh, that poor person over there. I feel sorry for people like that. Compassion, on the other hand, recognizes the suffering of another as a reflection of our own pain. And compassion says, I understand this. I suffer the same way. Well, now I mentioned empathy is another word that is seen as a synonym for compassion. It's pretty similar. Empathy involves the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. It's like stepping into the shoes of another person and sharing their feelings. And it's a starting point for compassion, but it doesn't necessarily lead to action. Empathy, you can just stop when you're sharing the feelings and standing in their shoes. And the problem with that is you can have, there's a danger with that, which is called empathic burnout or empathic fatigue. And this can be a problem for people that basically care too much and internalize those feelings, the pain of others. And people who often experience empathic burnout are first responders, doctors, nurses, social workers, maybe people who are family members who are caring for people with chronic illness like dementia. So that's a danger with empathy. Empathic burnout is a danger. Now, compassion, which is what I want to talk about here, is empathy in action. It goes beyond just simply understanding and sharing the feelings of others, and it adds this important next step of wanting to alleviate the suffering of others, and it can result in taking action. So compassion is really, it's important in Buddhism from the very beginning, and it's especially important in Mahayana Buddhism, where we have a real strong emphasis on alleviating the suffering of others. So if compassion is so important, how do we cultivate it? Are there any practices, specific practices that can help us cultivate compassion? Well, one practice is called karuna practice. You may have heard of metta practice. Any of you heard of metta practice? Metta practice is a practice for cultivating metta or loving kindness. And in metta practice, loving kindness practice, you meditate on sending loving kindness first to yourself, and then to someone close to you, and then maybe to someone, a neutral party, and then you send loving kindness to someone that's you don't get along with very well. And you send this loving kindness by repeating these phrases. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. So you repeat those phrases to each of these people. Now in karuna practice, it's kind of the same deal. You're repeating some phrases to each of these different people, but the phrases are different. The phrases are, may you be free from suffering, instead of may you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you be free from fear and anxiety. May you find relief and peace. May you find strength in your difficulties. So that's karuna practice. Now, another practice for cultivating compassion is called tonglen, which comes from the Tibetan school of Buddhism. And tonglen translates to taking and giving. And it involves visualization and breathing. And so the way it works is you take in the suffering of others with each inhalation, and you send out happiness and relief with each exhalation. So on the inhalation, you visualize inhaling dark, heavy smoke. which is the suffering of others. It might be suffering of yourself. It might be the suffering of someone close to you, or someone, the suffering of the entire world. You take it in with your inhalation, take it into your heart chakra, where you transform it, you melt it and transform it. And then when you breathe out, this is through your nose, you breathe out, you're breathing out beautiful light and joy and happiness. So that's Tonglen practice. So you do these sitting on a cushion, you're meditating, and you wonder, okay, so does this make a difference in the world, in our lives? Well, researchers are starting to look at this now. Just like researchers, psychologists, and neuroscientists have been, the last few decades, have been looking at meditation and mindfulness to see, well, what difference does this make? Now they're starting to hone in a little bit more even, and looking at compassion meditation. And this is pretty recent, that they're starting to look at compassion. It's becoming an area of research. So I'm going to tell you about a couple of types of research studies about compassion meditation. So one sort of study is, this is psychologists who are looking at behavior. They're going to look at two groups of people. One group is in this study is those who have taken training in compassion meditation, and then there's a control group that has not. Okay, so you got these control group and then compassion meditators. And the scenario is there's a room, and this is seen as this is going to be a waiting room for where people are going to be brought in one at a time. A waiting room where they're told this is a waiting room where they're going to go take a test, some tests on memorization and concentration. So in this waiting room, there's 3 chairs, and when they're brought in, there's 2 of the chairs are already occupied by apparently people that are going to be also taking the test. Turns out these chairs that are occupied these are actors, and they're busy with reading a book or doing iPhone stuff. They're real busy. They're doing their own thing. So there's an empty chair, and the person that comes in can sit in that chair. And then a 4th person enters. This person happens to be an actor also, and this person's on crutches and is kind of uncomfortable and in a little bit of pain and having a hard time. So the question is, what are these people sitting in the chairs going to do? And the 2 actors that are busy doing their iPhones and their books, they just keep doing their own thing. So the subject that's been brought in that 3rd chair, what are they going to do? Well, it turns out that the people trained in compassion meditation, 50% of them give up their chair. 17% of the control group give up their chair. So this study shows that this compassion meditation training does influence the behavior of in an altruistic sort of pro-social way. And there are other studies with other scenarios that show the same thing. Another type of study is with the neuroscientists who are looking to see what's going on in the brain when you're meditating with this compassion meditation. And they look at experienced meditators like these Tibetan lamas that have been doing this for 10,000 or 40,000 hours. And they hook them up and have them do this compassion meditation, karuna practice or Tonglen. And then they observe what part of the brains light up. And they find out that the regions of the brains that light up are those that are associated with positive feelings. I mean, they're thinking about alleviating suffering of others, but the regions are associated with positive feelings. Those areas light up. And the regions that are associated with stress, regions like the amygdala, those show a decrease in activity. So it turns out that compassion meditation actually brings on some positive feelings and reduces stress. So this is one reason why medical schools and nursing schools are teaching compassion meditation to their students, so that they don't get caught up in this empathic burnout, so that they can, think about relieving the suffering of others and not just taking all the pain on themselves. So that's the first part of the talk. That's kind of the overview of compassion, which is empathy and action. It's the action, going on and doing something about suffering. So now I'm going to move on to the second part of the talk, which is where I want to talk about a problem we've got in America today and how compassion might play a role. And this is where I want to put some stuff on the screen. So I need to share my screen. Can you guys see that out there? Thumbs up. Okay, thanks, Donnie. You see it here? Okay, so I'm going to tell you about a report that came out in May of this year. And this is a report called Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. This is from the US Surgeon General. An advisory on the healing effects of social connection and community. Now, Surgeon General's advisories are pretty rare. They come out when there's a significant public health issue that needs to be brought to our attention. And ones that have come out in the past several decades are things like teen smoking or opioid addiction or skin cancer. And so the Surgeon General thinks loneliness and isolation is a big deal, and that there are public health consequences. So there's a number of studies that show there are public health consequences. Some of the physical health consequences of loneliness and isolation, similar to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Increased risk of heart disease, stroke, and developing dementia. There's mental health risks, developing depression, stress-related absenteeism because of loneliness, costs employers $154 billion annually. So this, you can see why this is seen as a public health issue. And it's called an epidemic because it's on the rise. And here's the proof that the Surgeon General offers for why it's on the rise. These are some graphs showing from 2003 to 2020. So just right up to the beginning of COVID-19. The top left graph is related to social isolation. So being alone. During those 2 decades, people were spending 24 hours per month, 24 more hours per month alone. And the other 5 graphs are all related to spending time with other people, social engagement with family or friends or others. And all those show that we're spending less time engaged with others. And so, why is that happening? Well, here's some of the causes that they offer. We have an increase in single person households, uh, social media, spending more time on social media. Um, like I said, this happened, these figures are just leading up to COVID-19. It's gotten worse since COVID-19. Another reason is there's declining community involvement, like membership in organizations like religious groups and clubs and unions. So this report paints a pretty scary picture. What can we do about this? Well, fortunately, the report, like any good report, it offers some solutions. There's some things we can do. And it offers, it outlines sort of 6 different big broad categories, things like public policies and things the medical and healthcare community can do, and things we can do in the digital world. But I'm going to focus in on a couple things that I think are related to things that are pertinent to us. They call these 6 pillars to advance social connection. One pillar, the first pillar, is strengthening social infrastructure in local communities. And one of their bullet points is to invest in local institutions that bring people together. So, like I said, social organizations memberships are fine, but that's not true here at the Zen Center. Our membership's been increasing 10% a year for the last 10 or 20 years. So our attendance at our classes and our retreats and our Tuesday and Sunday Dharma talks and our intro talks, those are all going up, especially in our Zoom attendees. So we're obviously meeting a need and contributing to addressing this problem with isolation and loneliness. So we're doing the right things here. And so whatever we can do to strengthen what we're doing here in this organization will help solve this problem. Just so happens that there's a membership drive going on right now. You may notice it out in the lobby. I didn't so this is fortuitous. This wasn't planned this way, but just check that out on your way out. That chart out there, and you may be getting, some people may be getting letters in the mail. But you know what we can do to support ourselves as an organization is important. The second thing I want to point out is the this pillar called build a culture of connection. Cultivate values of kindness, respect, service, and commitment to one another. That's the bullet point that they're making. Now, they don't have the word compassion in there, but to me, that's compassion. That's what they're talking about. And that's what each of us are doing when we're doing our own individual practices, is we're cultivating these values. And I know it's working, that each of us is doing some of this or cultivating these values. I know that from talking to some of the people that come here regularly on Tuesdays, that they're doing things in the community to alleviate suffering. I know we've got people working to bring meditation and mindfulness to prisons. I know we have people that are bringing food to people that have special needs in the food area. I know we have people that are helping struggling families find new homes. And I'm sure there's lots of things that I don't know about yet. But so let's keep doing those things. So that was the second part of my talk, which was to talk about this problem and how compassion that we're doing here at the center and we're doing individually can help address it. And now I'm going to launch off in a different direction and talk about a metaphor for compassion. And as some of you know, I'm a science geek, and I'm interested in Zen and science, and taught a class here earlier this year. So it may not surprise you that I'm going to offer a metaphor from the world of science. And in particular, I'm going to show you a molecular metaphor for compassion. And I'm going to introduce this metaphor with a chemistry demonstration that I used to do in my children's classrooms when they were in elementary school. So this experiment uses milk and food coloring and so. Have any of you ever seen this demonstration? Anybody out there? All right. Well, the way it works is you pour a thin layer of milk. Whole milk is best. You pour it into a plate, and then you add a few drops of food coloring to the milk, and then later in the experiment you add a drop of liquid soap, and something happens. And I decided it was actually going to be too messy for me to do this experiment here in the Zendo. I already spilled some water over here earlier today. Boy, can you imagine us spilling food coloring in here? But there are a number of YouTubes of this video because it's a pretty well-known demonstration. So I'm going to show you a YouTube video of this. And I have the materials to do this in the kitchen afterwards if you want to see it. So I'm going to share a YouTube video online, and I'm going to stop the video at one point and make some comments about what's going on, and then continue the video. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to give you a little chemistry lesson. This is I didn't do this in the elementary school. The chemistry lesson is only for advanced students. Just to drive home what the metaphor here is and why it relates to compassion. And this video that I'm going to this video that I'm going to show you, this YouTube video, is kind of a cute one. Here's the I'm calling this the milk of human kindness portion of the talk. This video, which I'm going to show you in a second here, there were a lot of videos to pick from, but I chose one that has a child doing this demonstration because I thought that was kind of appropriate, because I want you to be a little childlike in watching this and use your imagination. So if everything goes as planned, this is a technically tricky part of the demonstration of the talk. Let's see if this works. Can you guys, I want to make sure I'm not blocking the screen there. Can you guys see that out there?
We can, but there's no sound.
Okay, I'll narrate it. He's adding the food drops, food coloring, red. Now he's adding the blue food coloring. Now he's adding the yellow. He's adding the green. He's pretty excited about this. Now he's going to add the soap. This is where I'm going to pause it because I want to tell you something about what is. In fact, I'm going to go back just a little bit. couple seconds so you can look at this picture back here. This is where the food coloring's been added to the milk. And this, when I first did this experiment, I was a little surprised because I thought the food coloring was going to all mix up and the milk was going to be, different colors, and then eventually it's all going to be brown. But you see, the food coloring just stays in place. They're kind of like little islands floating in this sea of milk. And I'm going to tell you in just a second why that happens. But it's going to change when we add the soap. But I want you to think for a second about use your imagination to think about the feelings of those soap, the food coloring. Each color is sitting out there by itself. It's kind of lonely. It's isolated. It's kind of like the different groups in our society that are isolated. I mean, we're isolated in all sorts of ways. We have groups that are isolated because of race, gender, and political belief, because of nationality, isolated because of different ages, socioeconomic status. That's kind of what's going on in our society now. And there's suffering associated with that. Or you could say these are just individuals that are isolated because they see themselves as separate, independent selves that don't have any interaction with others, and they're suffering. So I hope you're using your imagination and feeling some suffering going on right now in this with these food programs. So if they're individuals, maybe they're feeling, don't those individuals look kind of like the same individuals on the report, the cover of this report? Different colored individuals just kind of sitting out there by themselves, lonely. So what is compassion and what is soap going to do to solve this problem? So that's what happens next. So now he's going to go to the point where he adds liquid soap. He's saying the magic is happening now. Just added a drop of soap. All this is still happening. Telling us it's magic milk. So okay, so that's the I want to go to the next slide, my next slide, and show you what's happening, what's going on a molecular level. So what you need to know is what's going on in the milk. And turns out that milk is kind of a complicated substance. It's made up of 88% water. Whole milk also has 4% fat. And if you look at it under a microscope, This is 4,200% magnification. Those little round spheres are fat globules, and fat is an oil, and oil and water don't mix, and so the oil fat molecules like to stick together, and they form these little globules. And this is what it looks like. And so when you add the food coloring is basically water, and water molecules like to stick together. They don't want to mix with the oil, so they stay in their little isolated island in the midst of the sea of milk. So they are all, so it's a result of the oil and water not wanting to mix. So then the question is, well, what does the soap molecule do? So I need to show you what a soap molecule looks like. And we're getting close to the end of the chemistry lecture here. But a soap molecule has two parts to it. One part of it on the left-hand side is made up of carbon and hydrogen. This is a hydrocarbon. This is an oily part of the molecule. So this oily part likes to mix with oils. And this other part over here with the oxygen and the sodium, this part likes to mix with water. We say that this part is, the oily part is hydrophobic. It hates water. This part over here likes water, so you say it's hydrophilic. So those two parts of the molecule can do two different things. One part likes to mix with oil, one part likes to mix with water. So I think of it like a kind of like a diplomat that brings together two different enemies. The diplomat can talk with one side and also with the other side and get them together. Or like a host or hostess at a party. At the beginning of a party, you've got these cliques that are all, like-minded people that are at different parts of the room. The host can go over and grab someone from group A and bring them over and introduce them to someone from group B and say, I think you guys can get along. And then pretty soon, everyone's talking to everybody else. It's all mixed together. So that's how soap works. It can bring people together, bring these molecules together by reaching out. And I think what happened in that demonstration, if you let your feelings carry you all the way through, there was some relaxation going on, some communication happening. So that's why I chose this demonstration. But if you step back from the molecular metaphor and think about what it means for us, wrapping up here, what it means for us right now, my challenge or question for you is, when you look around your own world, do you see any specific examples of suffering related to loneliness and isolation? And how can you reach out to connect and establish some sort of bond that will break down the barrier of loneliness and isolation? So how can you be that molecule that does that, serves as compassion? So you can return from the molecular world, and that's the end of the talk. And I'd like to turn it over to you with any comments or questions or observations.